Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 293. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some new Godzilla ReAction figures from Super7. Now, I'm a big Godzilla fan. In 2023, as I'm filming this, midway through December 2023, it has been a great year for Godzilla. We've been getting lots of action figures. We've been getting comic books from IDW. We've got the new movie from Toho Studios, which was Godzilla -1, which I just saw last week, and I loved it. The trailer for the new Legendary Godzilla movie just dropped. There's the spin-off series called Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which is related to the Legendary movies, which just started airing on Apple TV. I think, as of right now, I think there are 5 or 6 episodes that are out. I've watched the first 5, quite enjoying it. So, just a great year for Godzilla. I can't believe, I've been a fan of Godzilla since I was a little kid, and we've never had a year like this, where there's just so much stuff. So, really cool year for Godzilla. I'm a big fan of Super7's ReAction figures. I used to really want my Godzilla figures to be larger. It seemed weird to have a little Godzilla figure that was the same size as a G.I. Joe. I like the idea of a Godzilla not necessarily being in scale with my other figures, but at least sizable so it had some presence on the shelf. And I still like that every once in a while. But I've always liked the idea of being able to get a Godzilla figure to represent every different iteration of Godzilla. And there are over 30 Godzilla movies. And if you start bringing in things like video games and comic books, there ends up being a lot more iterations. And I don't have enough room on my shelves for 30 plus Godzillas this size. So when Super7 started with their ReAction line, these are 3 3/4 inch figures, and they've been giving us figures from all the different movies. We're only a few waves in, so there's still lots more of Godzillas to come. But so far, it's been pretty great. And I'm looking forward to eventually having, a couple of shelves like this, all full of Godzilla ReAction figures, not just of Godzilla, but also of Godzilla's friends and adversaries, which a lot of companies in the past have not had the license to make the other characters, but Super7 does. So we're getting lots of Toho monsters. For me, it's for the first time for a lot of these guys. Anyway, so I am a big fan of their ReAction figure line. Now, with a lot of lines I collect, I'm pretty close to a completist, but I'm not 100%. Partly, I don't need to get every single minor variant. Sometimes they release figures with just like a slightly different paint color. And if they were readily available, who knows? Maybe I would. But a lot of times they make these slight tweaks and then they make the figures exclusive to either conventions or certain stores. And it just becomes a whole lot of work to try and track everything down. So when it comes to Godzilla ReAction figures, I have all of the retail waves of figures. But even there, actually, I have skipped 1 or 2. Like there was a figure in the last wave, which was Mechagodzilla, but he was wearing like a fake Godzilla skin, and the figure was Mechagodzilla with half of the Godzilla skin peeled off. And I just felt like that's too scene specific. That's not really a figure of Godzilla, not really a figure of Mechagodzilla. It's kind of Mechagodzilla half transformation, and it didn't feel interesting enough. So I passed on that. Also, some of the convention exclusives I haven't been able to get. Some of the store exclusives I haven't been able to get. But I have a lot of them. I've done a couple of videos on Godzilla ReAction figures in the past. So if you're interested in seeing any of those videos, make sure to check them out. You should be able to find them on one of my playlists on my channel. Anyway, so today I've got a few new Godzillas. And so I guess I'm going to dive right into it. First, I'm going to show you these guys in the package, because I just got a few figures in the other day, and I haven't opened them yet. I'm looking forward to opening them, so I'll show you them in the package, then we'll open them up, and we'll do a closer review. But first up, one of the figures I want to talk about here is Godzilla 1962. This is the glow-in-the-dark New York Comic Con variant. So they had previously released this figure in the standard kind of Godzilla gray colors, which I already have, and I'll do a side-by-side a little bit later. But I ordered this guy from Big Bad Toy Store. So he was a convention exclusive, but whatever remaining stock they had showed up at some different online retailers. So I was happy that I was able to get him. I've already opened him up, obviously. But, so this, I like the packaging, the style of packaging for these glow-in-the-dark figures. It's very bold and bright colors. You'll see the other characters that are listed on the back of the packaging are King Ghidorah and Hedorah, which I already previously bought, the glow-in-the-dark variations of those guys. But they also advertised Gigan, which was a New York Comic Con exclusive as well. And I could have ordered him from Big Bad Toy Store, but I did not. That was one of the things where I thought, you know what, I've got a regular Gigan. I don't really need the glow-in-the-dark one. I thought the glow-in-the-dark toys were kind of neat at first, but when I realized that they're going to give me a glow-in-the-dark version of pretty much every toy they put out, it just gets a little overwhelming. So I'm cool with collecting the glow-in-the-dark Godzillas for now, but I don't need a glow-in-the-dark version of every single other Toho character. So I have a few of them, my favorites, but I didn't get Megalon. I actually didn't get... so I didn't get Gigan, I didn't get Megalon. And those actually are some of my favorite characters, but again, it's kind of overkill. These things aren't cheap, even though they look like they should be because they're small. But yeah, these guys cost me about $30 kind of minimum. When you're talking about these exclusives, they start getting a little bit more expensive, plus shipping, plus sometimes I get charged custom fees in Canada, so they get kind of pricey, and I can't just buy every single one that comes out. Anyway, this guy is neat, but we'll take a closer look at him in a second. The other figures I got, I ordered directly from Super7, the company that produces these things. And I don't normally do that just because I find it's easier for me to order from Big Bad Toy Store because that's where I buy a lot of my other toys, like Marvel Legends or G.I. Joe classified figures. And they have a function where you can bundle your things together and save on shipping. So when Super7 offers a new figure for pre-sale, it doesn't really make sense for me to order it from them because I end up paying full price shipping for the one item as opposed to buying it from Big Bad where I can bundle. But the reason I bought these directly from Super7 is because for their Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale, they had a 25% off sale. And so that was the right price for me to say, okay, and if there's enough items here, if there was only one item, even saving 25% off, it's still not worth it for me to buy from Super7 because they would charge me like $30 shipping just to send me one little figure. But here, I could justify the cost of like the $30 shipping because I bought 4 figures and I got them at a 25% discount. So it worked out. So first up, I have got another glow-in-the-dark Godzilla. So he's got that same style of packaging where it's just his face featured on the top. It's got that bold, like kind of Japanese lettering down the side. So very similar in style. This one here is Godzilla 1974. And we just got the standard paint version of this guy in the last wave. So I haven't even had the other version of this figure for very long. And here I am getting a glow-in-the-dark version of it. And there was only 2 figures in this kind of little wave or sub-wave of figures, whatever you want to call it. So they had a glow-in-the-dark Godzilla 74, and they also had a glow-in-the-dark Megalon that you can see advertised on the back there. Now again, I think Megalon is a cool character, but at this point, I have opted not to order the glow-in-the-dark one. I was tempted to, but I didn't. So anyway, we'll take a closer look at this guy once I get him opened up. Another figure I bought is Godzilla 1984 in his vintage toy colors. So I think a lot of people, when they think Godzilla, they think big green monster like this. They might even think silver fins, maybe a big red mouth, because that is how a lot of Godzilla toys looked for many, many years before we were getting this kind of officially licensed toys from companies like Super7. From before that, it was NECA doing the figures. We've got like, was it SH Monster Arts or something that is another company that does Godzilla figures. They're a little too high end for me, so I don't buy those. But there's a lot of companies giving us nice official figures that look like the movies. Before that, we had kind of, I don't know if I'd call them knockoffs, but I don't know how official they really were. So when you see this guy, he's green, and he's got a silver belly, and he's got a red mouth, And this is, again, a repaint of a figure that I already have. But when they first put out this Godzilla 84 figure, he was in the kind of darker gray colors that Godzilla is usually... That's how he usually appears on film. So now we got the toy color one. And I have this old Godzilla toy from... I've had this thing for... I don't know, I bought him in my early 20s. I've had this guy for like 20 years. And this is the kind of thing, I bought it from just some like random discount store. It didn't say, like, he didn't have an official tag that said he was Godzilla. So I didn't know if this was an official toy or just some random knockoff. I'm still not entirely sure. There's no real labels on him other than to say he was made in China. But you see how he is green, and he's got the silver belly, silver fins. He doesn't really have the bright red mouth like this guy does. But this is essentially what this figure is based on. There's probably a lot of people for a lot of years, when this is the only kind of Godzilla they could get their hands on, that this is how they see Godzilla in their minds. So when you see the dark gray Godzilla, it doesn't really ring true. Plus, Godzilla was always colored green in the comic books and in the old cartoons. So, yeah, a lot of people think of Godzilla as green. So that's why I had to have this version. I think he's pretty neat. Next up, another Godzilla. Now this guy, they don't officially call this one toy colors. Like the other one I just showed you, it officially says toy colors on the packaging. This here is what they call the Marusan soft vinyl Godzilla. And it too is kind of based on those old Godzilla toys. And I didn't have a toy that looked quite like this. His face is shaped a little differently. But this one has kind of the same color scheme as the last one I just showed you. It's bright green. It's got silver on the belly. It's got red eyes. So I'm not sure if these are both based on that same toy. But regardless, this is such a different mold than this one here that they don't at all look like the same figure. So I'm happy to have both. And this is a figure that is just a repaint of a figure that's been released 3 or 4 times already. I have a couple of them, which I'll do a little comparison once I open them up. But again, pretty neat. And the last one that I got here. So this, the toy color Godzilla. There was 3 figures in that wave. So there was a toy color Godzilla, a toy color Rodan, and a toy color Gigan. So I got the Gigan. So this is the guy that I had passed on the glow-in-the-dark version. But I thought this toy color Gigan was pretty cool. Now, I never had a vintage Gigan toy colored like this, but I have seen them before. So he's this metallic blue with the red fins. Again, this is not what he looked like in the movies, but for whatever reason, this is the color of like the vinyl toys that were available in the 80s. So this is how a lot of people remember Gigan. So I appreciate that Super7 gave us a film-accurate version first, but then they repainted him in these toy colors for those people that remember him more from the toy than from the actual movie. And so, yeah, I think this guy's pretty cool. I did not get Rodan. I have the regular color Rodan from, I think it was wave 1 of the ReAction figures. Rodan's just not my favorite. Rodan, Mothra. You know, I don't mind having 1 or 2 of them in my collection, but they are definitely not characters that I need every repaint. Mothra is a moth. It's kind of hard to make him fight Godzilla. It's, you know, and then Rodan in the movie, like the legendary movies, the new ones, I think he looks pretty cool and pretty fierce. But when you look at those old Toho movies, he does just kind of look like a chicken, and he's not very menacing. So I didn't feel the need to get the toy color, which is basically kind of a metallic blue similar to this. But anyway, I passed on that one. So those are my new ReAction Godzillas. We're going to open these guys up and take a look at them up close. But before I do that, so I mentioned earlier how there's often a lot of store exclusives, and it makes it difficult for me to collect them all. So recently, Super7 announced that they are going to have Godzilla blind boxes, and they are exclusive to Target stores. Now, blind boxes, if you're not familiar, it's basically you get a Godzilla figure, but it comes in just a little rectangle box, and it's sealed, and you don't know what type of figure is in there. They usually say there's like 5 to 6 different types of Godzilla, but you don't know which one. So you buy it and you get one figure, great. But then you buy another box, you might get a duplicate of the exact same figure. I find the whole blind box collecting very frustrating. It's not something I'm into. I think it's kind of a fad in Japan, and they kind of brought it over here. I don't understand it. I didn't really mind it. You know, it's kind of like a gumball machine. You put money in the gumball machine, you turn the lever, you don't know what you're going to get. But that's when you were putting in a quarter or $1. Blind box figures nowadays are anywhere from like $15 to $25. So that sucks to put that much money into it and then just get a double. Anyway, so Super7 put out this set of Godzilla blind box figures. And there was 5 different figures in the boxes. So there was 2 recolors of Godzilla. And then there was a recolor of Mechagodzilla. And then there was 2 Jet Jaguar recolors. So they were neat. I thought I'll never find them here because up here in Canada, we don't have Target stores. So unless I sought these things out on eBay, which I didn't really want to do, I was never going to get an opportunity to buy them. So I just kind of made peace with that. But if I were to get them, I would have wanted the Godzillas. Because even though I like Mechagodzilla and I like Jet Jaguar, I already have 3 Mechagodzillas in my ReAction collection and 2 Jet Jaguars. And where those guys are more side characters, I don't feel the need to have every single version. Godzilla is the character that I'm trying to collect every version, or at least as many versions as I can get. So if I were to be able to get any of the Godzillas or any of those blind box figures, I would have wanted the Godzillas. Anyway, I have a younger brother, which I speak about on the show quite a bit. I have a younger brother, Brian, and I have an older brother, Doug. Now, both of them, I talk about them a lot, and I have a recurring graphic that I bring up when I talk about either one of them. But neither of them have ever been on my show. Doug just lives down the street, but he's very, very camera shy. I did an episode a couple of years ago where his kids came on. I did a little video with his sons, but Doug did not want to appear on camera, so whatever. Brian, he would maybe do a video like this with me just for fun, even though he is not a toy collector. He thinks this is all pretty silly, but he's supportive. He's a good brother. Anyway, he lives in Miami, and in Miami, they have Targets, and they have Walgreens. So whenever there's exclusives, I ask him to take a look and see if he can find them. And he's really good about, anytime he goes into a Target, he calls me or he texts me, and he says, hey, I'm in the toy department at Target. Is there anything you want me to look for? And he's got me lots of cool stuff. Most recently, he got me a pack of Masters of the Universe Sunman figures, which I cannot get up here in Canada, but he picked those up for me, and he's going to bring them up to me next time he visits. Now, I was hoping he was going to come home for Christmas this year, which would be in 10 days from now, but he's not coming home for Christmas, but he is coming home in January. So I am looking forward to getting my Sunman figures in January, so you can expect a review of those when they show up. Anyway, he called me the other day, and he took a picture of the aisle of toys. And he was sending me pictures of G.I. Joes and Marvel Legends and stuff. He's like, is there anybody here that you need? And I said, no, I have all that stuff already. I'm like, but by any chance, do you see any of the Godzilla blind boxes? And he's like, what is a blind box? And I'm like, they're little boxes. And I found a picture online and I sent it to him. I'm like, it looks like this. You don't know what figure you're going to get inside. And then he video called me. And he said, yeah, they have a full box of them. So I think there's 12 little boxes, 12 or 16 in a box. And he said, yeah, they're all here. How many do you want me to buy? And I said, well, how much are they? And he said they are $15 American, which is about $20 Canadian. So I was like, you know what? I'm willing to buy 2. So I will transfer you the money to buy me 2 of them. But that's it. I'm not going to buy a whole bunch and risk getting a bunch of doubles. So he said, okay, I'll buy you 2. And I said, okay, when you get home, can you take a picture of the 2 figures just so I know which ones I got? Because I don't want to wait till January to find out which figures I have. So he said, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Anyway, he went ahead and sent me a video of him opening the figures, which was very, very fun of him. It's a fun little video. It's a fun little clip. He seems very enthusiastic, which he is not actually that enthusiastic. He's kind of trolling me a little bit with his enthusiasm, but that's all well and good. That's just kind of our relationship. So allow me to introduce my brother before I play his clip. It's pretty cool because it's like I have a correspondent on my show. It's like I'm Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, and I'm pitching to one of my correspondents out in the field. So here he is. This is my little brother Brian appearing for the first time on camera on Mike's Collection. So yeah, the wonderful, the fabulous Brian Hyland.
Wow, thanks Mike. That was quite the introduction. Your words are too kind. I'm really excited to be your guest for this Mike's Collection video to showcase these brand new Godzilla blind box packs. Let's see what we've got in here. All right. Wow, the excitement. I just love how toy manufacturers are making these blind boxes these days. So you never know what you're gonna get. So much excitement. Wow, I'm not used to opening boxes. Oh man. All right. Hey Siri, play a drum roll.
Drum roll by Sound Effects Library now playing.
All right, cool. We've got our Godzilla silver screen, I believe. Look at that awesome guy. Wow, cool details. Like, we've got another one though. All right. Okay, we ready? Comes in this very secretive black packaging. All right, Siri, play a drum roll.
Now playing drum roll by Sound Effects Library.
Oh, looks like this guy is Sparkle Godzilla. Oh, X-ray glitter Godzilla. Whoa, look at that glitter detail. Wow. This Godzilla looks like he's ready to party. Wow. Back to you, Mike. I hope you've got some other cool toys to review today.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate you picking those figures up for me, and I appreciate the effort you put into the little unboxing there. So anyway, now that we've seen those guys, I can't do a review of those two figures because I won't have them in hand until next month when Brian comes home to visit. But what I can do is open up these other figures and we can do a kind of a close-up look at these guys. So let's do that right now. So first up, let's take a look at Godzilla 1962 in glow-in-the-dark. So Godzilla 62, this would have been based off the original King Kong vs. Godzilla movie. So now we get a nice close-up look at him. He looks great with that bright pink paint on his mouth and on his eyes. And I really like how the glow-in-the-dark Godzillas, they've given them like these extra colors. Like, you know, he could just be this solid, let's just call this white for lack of a better color. He could be this solid white color, but no, they've given him these green fins, which is something a little bit more unique, and it makes it stand out. So just for an example, here is one of the previously released glow-in-the-dark Godzilla figures, and you can see with him, they gave him kind of a blue fins and the silver teeth and the silver claws. So, you know, it keeps these guys from just looking monotonous on your shelf, because already I have a shelf full of gray Godzillas, and to the untrained eye, a lot of them look pretty similar. If I had a bunch of just white Godzillas, they would also look very similar. So I really appreciate that these paint jobs really help them stand out from one another. And yeah, I think this guy definitely looks more interesting than this guy. Anyway, let's take a look at the 1962 regular figure. So this is the guy we got a little while ago. Great figure. So you can see sculpt-wise, these guys are the exact same. The only thing they've changed is the paint. Now, I don't know if we're going to get a King Kong in this line. That would be kind of cool, but he is not a Toho-owned character, so I don't know if Super7 has the rights to do one. But I have a few King Kong figures in my collection, but I don't have any that look like the hot mess that was featured in the Godzilla vs. King Kong 1962 movie. So that would be a pretty cool thing to get. Anyway, there's not a whole lot more to say about these guys. On the off chance this is your first video, like first time watching one of these videos, I'll quickly go over the articulation. Reaction figures typically have 5 points of articulation. So that would be their arms go up and down, their heads turn side to side, and their legs move forward. So they're based on the old Kenner, like Star Wars figures from the 70s and 80s. Now Godzilla figures, they often have an extra point of articulation because their tail moves. So these guys actually have 6 points of articulation. And that might vary per figure. Like King Ghidorah, his 3 heads move, but he doesn't have any arms. So, that changes up a little bit. But that's the basics. They're not very articulated. But these guys are, fun to play with. These are nice little figures to put in your pocket, take on an adventure, and just kind of mash together on your desk. Good stuff. So next up, let's take a look at Godzilla 1974 in glow-in-the-dark. Now, to be honest, I'm not sure which movie this is based on. I'm sure there are some hardcore Godzilla fans that can tell immediately by looking at him. I have been a Godzilla fan for pretty much my entire life, but I am not a super duper hardcore fan that recognizes every Godzilla immediately. Because Godzilla vs. Megalon was released in 1973, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was 74, and Terror of Mechagodzilla was 75. So you would think this guy is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, but I'm not entirely sure, because when I look at the release dates, I just have the Wikipedia page open, and I'm not sure if those are the American release dates, in which case, calling this figure 74, it might actually belong to Godzilla vs. Megalon that has a 73 date, because the Japanese and the American street dates weren't always the same. And I think Super7, they're pretty well versed in this stuff, so they're probably going with the Japanese street dates. So that's why I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, he's from that era. So pretty cool. And this guy's pretty different from the other Godzillas. This is when Godzilla was getting pretty goofy, and he was more like a children's superhero rather than a scary monster. And you can just tell that in his face sculpt with those big googly eyes. Now, we did just get the previous version of this figure, as I said, just in the last wave. I reviewed this figure not too long ago. So, again, you can see it is the exact same sculpt, just in different colors now. And he's pretty cute. Now, I was kind of surprised that this figure didn't have as much kind of highlights as the other glow-in-the-dark guys. So, this one is pretty much solid white. Sure, he's got the silver on his claws, and he does have some black on his fins. But yeah, he doesn't have any of that wash over his belly or his arms like these other guys do. So, I'm not sure why that is. But maybe Super7 just wanted to change it up. They thought, we haven't done just a fully white Godzilla figure here, so let's do that. And yeah, he looks good. So not a whole lot more to say about this guy. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. So this is Godzilla 1984 in his toy colors. So this guy is from the film called The Return of Godzilla, which was released in Japan in 84. But over here in America, I think it was just called Godzilla 85 because it was released in 1985. And they didn't bother with The Return of Godzilla. So this one, for a long time when you could find the VHS tapes and all that stuff, it was just cut. I think it actually just said Godzilla on the packaging, but was known as Godzilla 1985. But this is a cool design. I actually really like this design for Godzilla because that was probably the first Godzilla movie I ever saw as a kid. I can't say that with absolute certainty because I would have been very young, and those movies from my early years, they do kind of blur together. But it makes sense that the Japanese ones wouldn't have been as readily available. And when there was a release of the new American release of Godzilla 85, that might have kind of aroused the interest of Godzilla fans, and so maybe they started showing the older ones on TV around that time or something. So maybe I saw one of the old ones on TV before I saw Godzilla, Return of Godzilla. But anyway, it was definitely one of the first ones I saw. So I am kind of partial to this design. I really do like it. And this is the toy colors here. So why don't we bring in that big old toy I have? Now, it's not an exact match, but again, I don't know. I don't think this is necessarily the toy this is modeled after. It's modeled after something very similar, though. So, pretty cool. And let's bring out the previously released Return of Godzilla figure. So, there we go. Same figure, same sculpt, just a different paint job. And yeah, if you're not a Godzilla fan, you might be watching this thinking like, why do you need two of these figures? They look pretty similar, but, you know, Godzilla fans and collectors, they get it. Part of the fun is just having something new to buy. I like having these variations. I think these guys are definitely different enough for me to justify having the two of them. Maybe not everybody would feel that way. My wife might feel different. If my brother Brian is watching this, he probably thinks I'm foolish for buying, all these things that look pretty close to the same. But I'm going to assume most of you people watching are interested in these Godzilla movies, these Godzilla figures, and you're probably with me that these figures are different enough to justify having both. So next up we have the Marusan Godzilla. So this is based on an old vinyl toy. I did not have that toy when I was young, so I don't really have a nostalgic attachment to this design of Godzilla. It's similar to the Shogun Godzilla that they've released a few versions of. I know in North America that was probably a lot of people's first version of Godzilla in their collections, but that was before my time. I never had a Shogun Godzilla, and I never had a Marusan Godzilla. But I do appreciate both designs. And I think this one's kind of cool. It doesn't really look like Godzilla in any way. It looks far too cute to be Godzilla. I don't know. It's kind of bird-like. He definitely needs more of a snout, I think. But anyway, this is not my first time buying this sculpt. Initially, they released it in this color scheme, which I think is kind of probably more accurate to the vintage toys that were available in this sculpt. And they had it available in two different formats. They had it in the L tail and the J tail. So this here, I have the J tail, because that's his tail is pointed upwards. You could buy the exact same figure with a flatter tail called the L tail. And that was one of the ones where I drew the line in the sand and said, I don't care enough to get the same figure identical just with a slightly flatter tail. And now that I've got this guy, you can see the difference. This would have been the L tail version, so it sits a little flatter than this guy's. And yeah, I'm glad I didn't buy that because that's, it's not even a fully flat tail. Those guys are pretty similar. But anyway, now that you've changed up the color of the figure, I don't mind buying it. That gives me a reason to pick it up. I also have a glow-in-the-dark version of this guy. And you can see they gave him this kind of like silver wash on his belly. So there you go. I got the same mold, 3 different colors, all quite different. I like all of them. They're all pretty cool. Anyway, let's move on to the last figure. So here is Gigan. On the packaging, they specify that this is Gigan 1972, which would make sense. This is from the movie Godzilla vs. Gigan, which was Gigan's first appearance, but he has appeared several times since, and his appearance has changed over the years. So this is kind of the simpler version of him that appeared in the early movies. And yeah, this guy's pretty fun. It's a pretty crazy design. Like, I'm just used to this thing, but if you were seeing this for the first time, you might be like, what the hell is going on with this thing? Because like Rodan, he sort of just looks like a chicken. Then he's got like Cyclops' visor. He's got these tusks, and he's got these crazy hook hands, and then he's got a spinning like saw blade in his belly, and then he's got these triple fins back here. He is just a weird and wacky design, but he's cool. I love him. He's weird enough to be great. And yeah, this is supposed to be the vintage toy colors. So similar to this, even though these aren't screen accurate, this is how the toys were released back in the day for whatever reason. And so they're making a little nod to those toys, which I think is cool. But the other Gigan figure that I have in my collection is much more accurate to the 1972 film. So there you go. Same sculpt, same figure, just different paint job. And as I mentioned earlier, this guy is also available in a glow-in-the-dark version, which even now, as I'm holding these figures up and reviewing them for you, I'm kind of thinking, you know what, maybe I should get that glow-in-the-dark version before it's sold out. I don't know. I'm really trying not to buy as many action figures as I've been buying. This past year has been a crazy year for buying toys, and I really need to slow it down next year. And that's one of the ways I can cut corners, is stop buying just silly variants of every toy. But yeah, this guy is really neat. I really do like his design, and I think he would look pretty cool and glow in the dark. So we shall see. So before we wrap things up, I just want to show you these glow in the dark figures in action. Super7 makes lots of glow in the dark figures, from their Ultimates line right down to the ReAction line. All the different brands and licenses, they all have glow in the dark figures, and Super7 does them very well. These figures glow very brightly, and it lasts a long time. So yeah, it's a neat gimmick. I don't know really what to do with that gimmick. Like, I don't know if kids had these in their collections, would they play with them in the dark? I don't know. But anyway, it's kind of neat, and I think they look neat even with the lights on, so that's why I collect them. But the fact that they do glow, and that they glow as well as they do, is kind of a cool little bonus. So why don't we just flick off the lights here and you can see these guys glowing. So here you see the Godzillas glowing away. Now the Marusan Godzilla, he looks like he's not glowing at all. Now when I can see him here with my naked eye, I can see that he's glowing, but not nearly as bright as the other three. So I'm not sure if that's because he's made of a different material, or maybe he just didn't get to absorb enough light before I turn the lights off. None of these figures have really been sitting in front of a lamp or anything. This is just, them glowing from the little bit of light they caught during my, couple of minutes reviewing them. So if I were to hold these guys in front of the lamp for 20 minutes and turn the lights off, they would glow very, very brightly. But yeah, it's pretty neat. Okay, so that was my review of my latest Super7 Godzilla ReAction figures. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, stay tuned, because I've got, I've got 2 more figures at least coming from Brian, so I'll be reviewing those next month. And if you're into other action figures besides Godzilla stuff, I've got lots of other videos coming, including my best of the year, which I will be shooting the last week of 2023. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, if you liked what you saw, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me comments below. That's always appreciated. I like hearing from you guys. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.